Om Shri Sai Ram. Dear students, in the last video, you have learnt few basic terms in the introduction of economics. In this video too, there are some terms you will be learning which will be helpful to understand your lessons in the further chapters. Before that, let us briefly revise the questions that I had given you as an assignment. The first question was, what is the etymological meaning of the term economics? I have told you that etymology means study of root word. There are two root words. They are Greek words. One is ekos and another is nomos. Together they mean household management. So this is the answer, a sample answer that I have displayed on your screen. You might take this as an example how to write answers in a short format. The second question was, what is studied under positive and normative economics? So first you start off with giving definition of positive economics. Then you give an example of what positive economics question or a issue looks like. So example of a positive economics is, what is the impact of banning Chinese goods? China exports a lot of goods to India, and India has recently taken a decision of banning Chinese goods. So impact means result. What is the result of banning these Chinese goods? So this is a fact. This is what it is. There is no debate in facts, isn't it? Another example is result of increasing tax rates. If tax rates are increased by the government, how much do middle class people and the poor person get affected by it? So this is all fact-based approach to learning or studying economics. Then what is normative economics? Normative economics is the approach which takes value-based. Questions involving right and wrong, morality, is studied in normative economics. For example, is it right in banning Chinese goods at all? Should we do it? Here, there is no definitive right answer. Nobody can say this is right answer. It varies from country to country. So this is an example of what ought to be, what should be. Another example is, if government gives a lot of benefit to a poor person, should a poor person be allowed not to work? Should a society encourage a poor person to depend on the government benefits, subsidies and benefits given by the government? Is it morally right? I hope you understood the difference between positive and normative economics. And the next question that I had given you was, name at least 5 economic activities that you see in day-to-day life. The moment you step out of your house, there are a lot of such activities, such as buying groceries or vegetables, and going to a movie, paying ticket for the ticket and watching a movie, and also eating at a restaurant. And then probably your father asks you to recharge a mobile plan for him, and you do it for him. This is also an example for economic activity. Agriculture, industry, these alone need not be necessary as an example for economic activity. Another last example is, you see a Pani Puri wala selling Pani Puri roadside. He is also involved in economic activity. All of these involve exchange of money or money's worth. So these are 3 questions that I had given you as assignment in the last video. And in today's class, we will be learning few important terms. The wealth definition of economics. You will learn the literal meaning of the term economics. Etymological meaning. You did not learn definition yet. So, wealth definition of economics, and there is what is called welfare definition and scarcity definition. So these are all different approach taken to explain economics as a subject. We will learn about it as we go along. And you will also look at few famous well-known Indian economists and briefly their contributions to the development of Indian economy. And you as an economics student, what are the specializations that you can take within economics? I just give you brief examples. It is not important from examination point of view. And also the research opportunities in India and abroad. There are many international organizations which use the services of a student of economics or a researcher of economics. So by the end of this video, you should be clear about all these important points. Before that, let us just begin with few pre-reading questions. In the last video also, I asked you to put few basic questions which will help you to link the lecture or a content material you are reading. This will be very useful to understand your material in a much more deeper manner. The first question is, okay, what is the definition of economics? I have studied just the term economics. Now I want to know how it is defined by different people. Who are few economists who have really made some mark in the society? Just names of them. Already some of you might have studied this in high school. And what are the contributions of these economists who may belong to India or who have helped the growth of Indian economy? Are there any such economists at all? And where do economists work? I see a movie star working, or you might see a software engineer working. Where do economists really contribute their ideas? So these are the questions in your mind. Now we will go into studying the basic terms of economics. So the definitions throughout last 200 years, many of the economists have given different interpretation to the word economics. The first is Adam Smith and Alfred Marshall. Next is Leonard Robbins, and we have Paul Samuelson. We will look into their definitions one by one. Economics as a science of wealth. Approaching studying of economics as a tool to increase wealth or prosperity of the nation. That's what it means. So there is a very famous economist who defined economics in this manner. This is a drawing of the very famous economist called Adam Smith. He lived during 1723 to 1790, and he was a Scottish economist, philosopher, and author of a very famous book called The Wealth of Nations. The name of the book is actually, in short, it is mentioned as Wealth of Nations, but the full title of the book is An Enquiry into the Nature and Cause of the Wealth of Nations. Here, if you see, he has stressed on the word wealth of nations. During 1723 to 1790, England, specifically Scotland, was undergoing an agricultural revolution. It was dominating many other countries. As you have studied in history, England has colonized countries like India, many African countries and Asian countries, etc. Their aim was to just increase the prosperity of Great Britain. Scotland actually was part of Great Britain. Great Britain consisted of Ireland, Scotland, and England of today. And the aim of economics was to study how a nation can prosper. So the book actually is a very famous book, The World Economics. It is considered as one of the first books to bring together all the ideas of economics by the previous economists or thinkers who have thought about this subject. It was published in the year 1776. This is an extra information just for your knowledge. Adam Smith actually introduced the term market for the first time. He included market in economics. How market plays very important role. As you study in higher classes, you will learn these concepts in much more detail. But essentially, he is called father of modern economics because he actually compiled many of the ideas and theories and thoughts of economists before him and presented in a single treatise and also analyzed them to help the countries during those point of time. The advantage of such a knowledge together actually made this person called father of economics. He did not really give birth to an idea of economics. He is not the first one to talk about economics. No, he actually compiled all those ideas in a meaningful manner for the benefit of government, policy makers, students, etc. And he was a great thinker who actually promoted what is called market economy or capitalism. He has influenced Karl Marx, who actually came up with an idea of communism, and many such thinkers. That is why the Western world considers him as father of modern economics. I hope you are clear why he is considered as father of modern economics. And he defined economics as a science of wealth. And the next definition is from the point of view of well-being. What is this word well-being? Well-being means happiness, health and happiness. In another word, it is called welfare. If you see, Adam Smith actually talked about wealth, but Alfred Marshall, who is a very influential economist, talks of economics as a science of wealth, science of welfare. He lived during the year 1842 to 1924, and he actually made economics a more scientific profession by including mathematic techniques and algebraic technique into economics. He made economics a more mathematically rigorous discipline. And he published a book called Principles of Economics in the year 1890, his most famous book among many of his published books. And the emphasis entirely shifted from wealth to well-being of a person. What is the definition of economics according to him? Economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. And he goes on to expand. It examines that part of individual and social action which is connected with attaining material requisites of well-being. What is the meaning of the word requisite? Requisite means a necessity. So we need many basic necessities for our well-being, isn't it? For our happiness or for our welfare. So Alfred Marshall was saying a person in the ordinary day-to-day life How does he make choices to take action so that he earns food, earns income for shelter, clothing, and maybe a health expenses. So these are all responsible for a well-being or a welfare of a person. So ordinary business of life means day-to-day activity which is responsible for happiness of a person. So therefore, Alfred Marshall definition of economics actually went a bit deeper from wealth to well-being. Just because a person is rich doesn't mean he is happy, isn't it? So this is one example of looking at economics as a science of well-being or welfare definition of economics. Another definition is by Leonard Robbins. We will see what he actually captured that these two economists missed. These two great persons actually missed an important problem in economics. And the problem is called scarcity. You have all heard the word scarcity. It means shortage of something, isn't it? Now, didn't they know that there is a scarcity of resources in the world? They knew. But somehow it was not included in the definition of economics. Why is this important? Look around. Anything that is available in plenty doesn't require economics. For example, sunlight is there. There is plenty of sunlight. Is there a need of subject to study how we can utilize sunlight? There is infinite availability of sunlight. And air is everywhere, isn't it? There is no economic subject that studies usage of air as such. Something that is limited, a petroleum or a natural resources such as coal is limited in supply, or an iron ore is limited in supply. How do we use economics as a subject so that we use these scarce resources which are in short of supply? So this was a problem actually addressed by Leonard Robbins. Now, before that, let us understand the concept of scarcity. You and I and every human being around the world has many desires, isn't it? If you look at those desires, they are broadly of two types. One is needs, that is basic necessities, food, shelter, clothing. Another is called wants. Wants is a car, a premium car maybe, a recreation, holiday to Europe or some other country. We have beach houses and mansions. These are all luxury items or commodities which are actually classified under wants. These are all desires. They are unlimited. If you ask a person what all do you want in a lifetime, the list keeps on growing. But to satisfy that, we need some kind of a resources, isn't it? To build a mansion or a house, we need land, we need cement, we need soil, which is basically used for cement. These all have very limited in supply. So, capital, money available, or land, or people who are actually using these resources called laborers, human workforce, this all is very limited. What happens? Each one of them actually have alternative uses. You take an example of land. If a rich person has a piece of land, he might use it to actually turn it into a garden for his house. Or he might use it to construct apartment and sell it and make some more money. So therefore we never know. There are multiple choices that one person can use land in a different manner. Alternative means many uses of a single resource. So we have unlimited desires, but there are each of the resource has alternative uses. This gives rise to what is called scarcity. Scarcity means shortage of a resource. Why? Because only limited in supply, but the list actually can go on and on. Because there is scarcity, an important problem in economics arises. It is called the problem of choice. This is where economics comes into picture. Economics is useful to decide how to use these resources when it is limited in supply. It is useful to choose, to make a decision how to use a piece of land or how to use certain amount of capital. So this is an example of how scarcity can give rise to problem of choice. The next definition is economics as a science of choice making. Whenever there is scarcity, we discussed that the problem of choice arises. So Lionel Robbins actually was one such influential economist who lived during 1898 and 1984, whose contribution to the scarcity aspect that is observed in economics is actually humongous. He is a British economist and his work is titled Essay on the Nature and Significance of Economic Science. This particular economist gave the definition, which is displayed on your screens. Economics is a science which studies relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. You already know what is alternative uses. Each resource, like a land or a capital, has many uses, isn't it? You can buy a motorbike, or you can spend on higher education, or you can purchase a costly iPhone with 80,000 or 70,000 rupees. There are multiple products that one can purchase. That is alternative uses. Then there is relationship between ends and scarce means. That is an important aspect of definition that you should understand. Ends means goal. Scarce means is a tool, system, way. Here it is referred to as a resource. Let me give you an example. So if you want to travel from Bangalore to Chennai, the means of transportation is bus or a train. So bus is actually a tool for your travel from Bangalore to Chennai. So similarly, to satisfy a goal of getting internet connectivity and ability to communicate in a long distance, that is a goal. Means is a resource. Resource is capital. You can buy a phone with a capital. Then phone becomes a resource. So therefore, he said, economics is actually a subject which studies the human behavior in a point of time where resources are limited, which he has to use to fulfill the goal or desired commodity. So this is the meaning of economics from the point of view of scarcity or choice making. He included scarcity in the definition, which Alfred Marshall and Adam Smith, his predecessors, actually overlooked. Because these days, scarcity of resources is one of the important factors in economics. The next definition is by a person called Paul Samuelson. Now he actually gave a definition which will actually clarify the development or growth aspect of economics. A development definition of economics. Now, why have I called it meaning of economics? Because you can use his definition to write your answers now and also in years to come. Because he actually captures comprehensively many of the aspects of this subject. Let us look into his background. He lived during 1915 to 2009. He was born in America, and he's the first person in America to win Nobel Prize for Economic Sciences. So he won Nobel Prize, and his definition of economics is, as it is displayed, very comprehensive. So how societies make choices. So decision or choice making has come in allocating scarce resources which are limited. They have to use it for what? To produce valuable commodities. So goods which are of some use is called valuable commodities. If you have a commodity which is of no use to anybody, it is not of a value, isn't it? And not only produce them, distribute them for present generation and also future generations to come. So this is the most important aspect which is added by Paul Samuelson. He included the future generations, and that is where development or growth aspects come in. Not only utilizing the resources for our needs today, but we have to grow these resources. Make sure more resources are available for the future generations. How will that happen? Only when the economy grows. So therefore, Paul Samuelson talked about making choices when resources are limited, and allocation, how to use these resources in a way that we produce valuable commodities which can be used not only by the present generation but also future generations. I hope you understood how comprehensive or how holistic the definition of Paul Samuelson is. So this is yet another definition of economics you can add to your knowledge of economics. You might ask, sir, why so many definitions of economics? It will help you understand how economics as a study or a subject has grown over the years. Initially, wealth aspect was seen by Adam Smith. Again, welfare aspect. Then scarcity aspect by Lionel Robbins. Paul Samuelson actually included almost everything else and added a growth or development aspect, which is for future generations. Just like a baby is born and takes a position of a boy and adult or an old person, so the perspective of this particular human being keeps changing as he grows. Similarly, economics as a subject got included many more very interesting ideas that are very useful to study. So these are all various definitions which you can keep in mind. Now, what do economists do then? So you study economics, so what is their job? They actually study with the common goal of finding many ways. What are the different ways where you can actually improve the welfare, happiness of human beings? So for that, what do? They talk about making use of scarce resources, which we studied in other definitions. And what do? Once they study them, they come up with theories and models. What is a model? Any science student or an engineer or an architect, each of them will develop a small model of a large replica of what they are going to create, isn't it? Say there is a Shiva statue that is being built. If it is a large statue, exact replica of such a statue is built in a small, maybe 5 feet, 6 feet statue. Or a building construction architect will build a replica of a small model. In the same way, economist also builds a model in a small economy where he studies about different aspects, and also he can advise policymakers by using these models. He comes up with new theories. Theories are opinions, for example. After each cricket match is over, each and every commentator actually sits in a TV or even outside a normal audience will give his own theories why India lost or why India won. Who was responsible, which player is responsible, at what point the game turned. So these are all opinions, isn't it? Different ideas. So you can just think similarly, theories are different ideas, propositions, assumptions made by economists to actually explain why a certain economic activity works or why it doesn't work. So this is what economists do. When you study economics, this is what you will be doing wherever you are working. Let us look at some of the famous Indian economists. This is very exciting. Till now we looked at Westerners. Most of them were Britishers, isn't it? One of the very famous economists is Chanakya or Kautilya. So we will study about his contribution very briefly, of course. And there is Dadabhai Naoroji, and there is V.K.R.V. Rao, who lived during freedom struggle and who contributed to the freedom struggle and freedom movement. And there is Mahalanobis, very famous economist who played important role after independence. And there is Amartya Sen, whom many of the Indians know from his work in welfare economics. And there is also a person called Jagdish Bhagavati, about whom we will discuss in the future slides. Here we have the first person, Chanakya. The other main name of Chanakya, of course, is also called Kautilya. And also historians say that his original name was Vishnu Gupta. These are all estimations based on historical evidence. And he was actually a teacher in Takshashila University, in the ancient university, Nalanda and Takshashila. You might have heard about them. And he was not only a teacher, he was a philosopher. You might have heard about Chanakya Niti, very famous Chanakya Niti published in many languages these days. He was actually pioneer. Pioneer means the first person to actually discuss about economics as a science in India. When was this? It was in 2nd century BC. Adam Smith lived during 1723 to 1790. And one boy very interestingly asked this question, Sir, Adam Smith lived much later. We Indians have somebody as Chanakya who has come up with such a big treatise on economics. Why is he not considered father of economics? Why should we call Adam Smith as father of economics? The reason for that is the subject economics that we study today, various topics that you will study today, and scientific techniques and models, theories, laws, all these in economics are actually proposed by Westerners. Using what? About scientific methods and techniques, mathematical techniques which are come up again in the Western world. And the subject was compiled, put together in the Western world, maybe in Britain and some in America. So we are also studying the same subject today. So economics as we know it is called modern economics, which are practiced in last 200 years, which is studied and done research on. All this actually began with one person's effort called Adam Smith. He compiled, as I told you, the previous works. and gave very interesting ideas for the economists during those times. Before that, actually, the economics as a subject was studied in philosophy. There was no separate subject called economics. And later it became political economy. There was politics and there was economy combined. And with the effort of Adam Smith, a separate area of a study got created. So that is what we know as modern economics. So I actually answered that boy that if an Indian actually does extensive research in the Arthashastra, which was actually lost for a very long period of time. We didn't have the Arthashastra. There was no records of it. We only got to know about Arthashastra and it was given by a Brahmin scholar in Mysore Palace in the year 1905. During that point of time, Arthashastra actually came into light. We didn't know till 1905 that what is contained in Arthashastra. And research is not very rigorous in Arthashastra. So therefore, if somebody comes up with the special ideas and extraordinary techniques, if there are any in Arthashastra, and if they are implemented and studied and research done, then maybe Kautilya or Chanakya may be called as the father of Indian economics. But for modern economics, the father title is given to Adam Smith. Now again, this doesn't mean that everything that Adam Smith said is 100% right. Many economists actually disagree with him in few aspects, in many aspects of his theories and ideas. Even today, many economists disagree. But it surely made a lot of influence in the subject economics. I hope you got the clarity. But why Chanakya is not called as the father of economics? Why should we call Adam Smith, a Westerner, as a father of economics? So, and what is the contribution of Chanakya? As I told you, Arthashastra, which is a book on economics, and he was advisor, royal advisor to the king Chandragupta during Mauryan rule. So this is all you have to know for this particular chapter. And next we have Dadabhai Naoroji. He was yet another person who made a lot of influence during freedom struggle. He actually was a trader who lived during 1825 and 1917. He's a cotton trader and a politician. He got elected to Britain Parliament. And he was also an economist and a businessman. He for the first time proposed the estimates of national income in India. First time national income was calculated in the year 1876 in the book actually authored by Dadabhai Naoroji. And he was called Grand Old Man of India. This is a respect given, just like Mahatma title given to Gandhiji. And he proposed an important theory called drain of wealth theory. You will learn about it in Indian economy, especially under British rule. Another economist who actually contributed to freedom struggle was V.K.R.V. Rao. And he was an Indian economist and a politician. Most importantly, he was educator. He was professor. And he actually came up with a scientific estimate. Dadabhai Naoroji's estimates were very rough estimates and V.K.R.V. Rao's were with scientific estimates using statistical and mathematical techniques in the year 1931. And his contribution is he established some of the research and educational institutions for economics. Famous is Delhi School of Economics, even today. And there is an institute called Institute of Economic Growth and another institute called Institute of Social and Economic Change. So these are the institutions established by V.K.R.V. Rao. The next is Prashanta Chandra Mahalnobis. He is probably one of the most influential Indian economists till date. What is his contribution? He was a statistician who actually worked under Jawaharlal Nehru. And he set up later an institute called Indian Statistical Institute. Even today, this institute is number one institute for statistics in India. He started a journal called Sankhya, a research journal for statistics. And he actually came up with the plan for industrialization during second 5-year plan after independence. He came up with a plan to improve number of industries, modern industries in India. This was under Jawaharlal Nehru. Therefore, he is called as architect of Indian planning. Another Indian economist is Jagdish Natwarlal Bhagwati, famously known as Jagdish N. Bhagwati. He was actually born in India and later on became a naturalized American economist, that is American citizen. Naturalized means he later got a citizenship of America, having studied there and having worked there in Columbia University. For a number of years he was given citizenship. He is actually very influential in research on international trade and also a proposal of free trade. What is free trade? What is trade? All this you will learn in coming classes. So, another person who was very influential in the area of economics even now, whose views are valued by most of the governments, is Amartya Sen. He was born in India and right now he's a professor at Harvard University and he's a renowned economist who was actually conferred Nobel Prize in the year 1998 in welfare economics. And he was also awarded Bharata Ratna in the year 1999. So his works are actually have influenced world over in the area of human development. What is human development? All this we'll be learning in future classes. For now, you just need to know his work and contribution. And few areas of specialization where you will be engaging in as you go into higher classes in economics or microeconomics, macroeconomics, and you have econometrics, which is a combination of mathematics, statistics and economics. And you have game theory, which is again in mathematics but also used in economics, and financial economics, combination of finance and economics. And there is environmental economics, so on and so forth. There are a number of such areas of specialization. And what about research opportunities in India? In India, there are centers such as Niti Aayog, which is a government body, Central Statistical Organization, which is also a government body, and National Sample Survey Organization. So number of such universities, public universities as well as private universities, also which encourage research on economics. If a person is interested in doing a research on any particular area, there are a number of avenues. This is not exhaustive. The list actually goes on and on. And what about international organizations? How does an economist contribute in an international? And there is World Bank, which uses services of economists. There is International Monetary Fund. There is United Nations for Development Program. And number of such Asian development banks, number of such organizations use the services of economists. So economics as a discipline is very, very vast and diverse. Now these are all not important from the examination point of view, but when you are beginning in a particular area, you must know what are the frontiers, how does the economics as a subject looks like, and what are the opportunities you have, how you can contribute to the development of not only in India, rest of the world as well. So that is it for today, and I'll be giving you few questions. Kindly think over it, refer to your notes and answer these questions. The first question based on today's lecture is, how did Alfred Marshall define economics? And the second question is, how was Lionel Robbins' definition different from his predecessors? What did he add that his predecessors like Adam Smith and Alfred Marshall didn't add in their definition? And the third question is, what is the meaning of economics? If you have to write in an exam or somebody asks you, how would you simply define economics? And why is economics defined as a science of choice making? This actually comes in scarcity definition. And name at least 3 Indian economists and briefly mention their contributions. It could be Chanakya or Mahalanobis or even the today's living economists. So please kindly do this assignment, and we'll meet in the next class. Thank you.